and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
A crucial match in the race for the title and Champions League qualification was the focus when Conte's Spurs visited Klopp's Liverpool. In the end, the game finished 1-1, with Diaz equalising after Son had opened the scoring for Spurs. The XG showed that the chance quality was roughly similar, but what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. And if you want to take your enjoyment of the game up, I'm happy to be working with my fantasy football app of choice yet again, Spitch. Spitch is my favourite fantasy football app, as not only can you play for free and still win cash prizes, the scoring system is much more interesting. It's not just goals and assists, so players also get points for passes, tackles and interceptions, meaning that all 11 players are crucial. Even better, Spitch's overall scores and prizes reset each week. So, if you join today for example, this week you have as much chance of winning a prize as anyone who started playing on match day 1. So, download Spitch for absolutely free through the link in the description below to give it a go, and to help support the channel. Also join the FMS EPL community on Spitch, link down below, and I'll shout out the best performers. Currently it's available in the UK, Germany and Austria, 18 years old and up, and you need ID to fully register. We'll begin with Liverpool on the ball as they dominated with over 65% of it. The contrasting strategies from the teams was clear, from the passes per defensive actions, with Liverpool pressing high and barely letting Spurs complete a pass, while Spurs were happy to sit deep. And this shows in how Spurs set up their back three. In these shapes, an aggressive front foot press would see the wing-backs looking to press the Liverpool full-backs and the wide centre-backs then moving across to cover the wingers. But as you can tell, this is risky, especially because Liverpool's front three is so good that having 1-versus-1s would not be a good idea. So instead, it was the wing-backs who stayed deeper to cover the wingers, allowing the wider centre-backs to remain compact, and the Spurs wingers instead to move deep and cover the Liverpool full-backs. In fact, on the rare occasion Spurs were aggressive in the press, Liverpool took advantage with Fabinho moving to receive in the space as Salah had the defender pinned deep, and the outnumbered Spurs midfield 2 would be reluctant to come across. Speaking of the midfield, Liverpool looked to take advantage of the 3-versus-2 deeper, with Thiago and Fabinho creating a double pivot whilst Henderson was the free man and looked to push higher up. And with Mane's freedom in the nominal 9 role, they could then form a midfield box, so that if Højbjerg and Betancourt pushed up higher to apply pressure, they could find the pass between the lines. But again, Conte's Spurs were clear in their plan, and their midfield would not be drawn out to press, and in fact, often it would be Kane who would drop deeper, so that whilst his midfield would stay deep, he could apply a bit of pressure on the double pivots. So, Liverpool tried to draw out the Spurs shape in other ways. Down the right, by having Henderson push high into the right half space, it meant that Salah often held his position wide to form a front 5. So Trent tucked into this midfield position where he could get on the ball, and he would look to draw Betancourt higher, which then create space between the lines for Mane or Henderson himself to receive. Down the left, it was Thiago who was the key, and he would often drift more to the left-hand side, and in these deeper situations, both Robertson and Diaz would be wide down the left whilst Mane would patrol between the lines. So if Højbjerg were to be drawn towards the ball, Mane would potentially be found. But as discussed, this rarely happened as the midfield 2 were disciplined for Spurs. But instead, where Kulusevski would normally be on Robertson, he could then be drawn to Thiago, meaning that if Emerson pressed Robertson, there's potentially space here, mainly for Mane to attack, which we did see at times, but Kulusevski tended to remain deep. It should also be noted, when Spurs defended in this shape with the wingers wide, it would mean that Kane was often isolated at centre forward, so that often when Spurs were looking to transition and look to find him with the first pass, he was smothered at the source. And up front, Liverpool looked to overload the box with their usual front 5, which involved 2 men providing the width and 3 forwards looking to flood the box. However, the 3 centre-backs could cover the 3 forwards, so Liverpool couldn't be as effective as they usually are. This may be partly why Klopp brought on a fourth forward in Jota to try and make it a 4 versus 3 in the centre to get on the end of crosses. And the Liverpool shape also meant that Trent, Fabinho and Thiago effectively formed a net outside the Spurs box, so whenever the ball broke, they would be likely to get to the second ball and keep the pressure on. Spurs could be effective on the counter, however, with the plan consistently being to hit the dropping Kane, who would then look to play in a winger running in behind the high Liverpool fullbacks, which led to many promising situations. But what happened when Spurs were on the ball? In open play and from goal kicks, Liverpool were pressing high with the front three on the centre backs, and often the fullbacks would push up to back this up, and this could be effective. But at times, this created room for an extra Spurs runner to move into the space and look to draw out the Liverpool centre-backs. And an adaptation of this leads to the Spurs goal. After a set piece breaks down, we see Liverpool's front three pressing narrow, so Salah's position means that Emerson is free. And as Sessegnon is also high in this situation, Spurs have a 2 versus 1 against Robertson who's covering, so he cannot close them down effectively. The ball is switched and Sessegnon, as he often was throughout the match, is the spare man out wide, and he expertly pulls the ball back for Son to tap home. And in more open play, Spurs often struggled to play through the midfield, and this was because, due to the 2 versus 3 disadvantage, Henderson and Thiago would often press freely. But Spurs ended up adapting, and Kulusevski in particular was effective at dropping into this inside channel and slightly deeper to receive behind the pressing midfielders for Liverpool, but still away from Fabinho, allowing him to turn and look to drive at Liverpool. Overall, it was a game of 2 contrasting styles, but it still means Champions League qualification for Spurs will be dependent on Arsenal's results. Liverpool will be disappointed not to keep the pressure high on City, but they're still well in with a shot. But drop your final top 4 predictions down below. And for the managerial score, Liverpool did have more of the ball, but despite Klopp's adaptations, like switching to a front 4, they weren't creating great chance after great chance, so he earns a 6. Conte's defensive plan was fairly solid, meaning that he earns a 7. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out. And a special thanks to my patrons including BJ, Adam Keating and Loic Gerehe.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.